Okay, so in my project folders, I'm going to paste the textures for the skull. So skull color, normal, and roughness, and come out of here. Let's see, I've got that saved there. So make a couple of materials. Principal shade. Principal shader. Let's click and drag. So I want one to be the skull and the other for the bubbles. So let's do the skull first. So as per usual, set this to white. Let's drop in those textures. So go to hip and find my texture, albedo. In there, in the roughness, skull roughness, and the normal comes, you come here, turn that on, and just connect it up. There we go, perfect. And since we're using a texture map for the roughness, make sure to come to your roughness and turn that up to 1, so this will multiply with those texture values. The same with the color, that's why we set this to 1. The rest of this we can leave at default. And that's good for that. So for the bubbles, we will come to that in a moment. So maybe set these to white as well. Let's just see how that looks. Come in here and then we'll drop a material. Okay, and so we need the group. So big bubbles, well, any bubbles actually. So we'll just do bubbles with a star, and that will be bubbles. Okay, and then add another, and then for the skull, I don't know why we don't see the group there. Let me just double check. It's there. Maybe I forgot to do the material. Skull there, and then we'll just have to select the skull by 3D connectivity. So come here, press 9 on your keyboard to open this. Go to 3D connectivity, select the skull. I don't know why I can't move up. There we go, it's running a bit slowly. Shift click there, press enter. Am I trying to render this? No. There we go, so that should be working right now. Let's check the render. Okay, that obviously didn't work, so we just try and refresh it. No, again, let me go back here. Let me just turn off the lighting and set this to smooth shaded. Come to the skull. I want to grab one of the primitives and come to geometry spreadsheets and go only show selected. Yeah, it's in the small bubbles group, so I made that mistake. So it seems like my mistake here was naming the skull, you know, the group here. I just named the node to skull and not the actual group. So what we should be able to do is set this after. Okay, let's do it this way around. So I'm going to delete that. So set everything to bubbles, and then after we overwrite the skull group, these that we selected, with the skull material. So fingers, there we go. We see the color changing there. That's the color texture working. So let's try that, and fingers crossed that will work. There we go. So now we're seeing the skull working correctly. So let's take a look at the bubbles next. So I'm going to zoom in on one of these, shift click to render one area, and then go back into my materials. So obviously we want these to be transparent, so transparency to 1, so they're fully transparent. And then I found for the IOR to use a negative value here, give me a kind of, I thought that gave a sense of, not negative, sorry, below 1 value gave a sense of it being, you know, something underwater. Cool, and that's pretty much it. Let's render the whole thing. Let's go into our out context and into our mantra wrap. set up the render. So again, I'll excuse me, I'll just do the one frame, but you'll want to do frame range. I'll render just the current frame. I'm going to set this to physically based rendering. I'm going to drop these limits down just to so it'll render a bit quicker, and give it a diffuse limit. And then for the noise, so you know we're going to have some sharp. Let's render this area out. Let me find a big bubble. Actually, come here. There we go. And then take a snapshot of that. And most of the noise there you can see is in the reflection. So I'm going to push the reflection quality up quite a bit, and you can see it's, there we go, giving us some more samples. So that should help with the noise. And that's it. Objects, we've got them. Just make sure that you've got this turned on and not this, and you're rendering cam 2. So in here, change that to cam 2. And then some images. So let's save out. For the composite, we want the shading depth. Combined lighting, maybe. We'll turn that back on and visualize the whole thing. And another really cool one, I don't know if we'll actually use it, but if you come here and then go to combined lighting per light, it's going to be quite useful. And if you come here, and we can go to, see, you can see the result, the contribution of each light individually, which is quite handy. And then so in the compositing you can, you know, have control of them one by one. And then we got the depth there, so we can add some depth of field. And that's it. Okay, so stop that, render it out. Oh, give yourself a location. Render in the HIP file is probably fine. Let's call this I don't know, final render. Maybe let's go $4, $3, doesn't matter. EXR is actually what you need for all of these. Current frame, that's good. Render to disk. Hey, just one thing I completely forgot here. I wanted to drop in a background as well. So back to the object level, make another geometry node, and we'll call this background. Dive inside there. Create a grid. Okay, let's go into our camera so we can make sure that it actually that we can see it. Let's rotate it so it's facing the camera. You can see it's kind of there, but we can probably make sure that it's big enough. Okay, and give ourselves loads of subdivision because I'm going to add some noise, some color to this. And let me just move it back a little. Maybe move it up to cover that gap. There we go. And then draw up an attribute of up. There it is. And I'm going to use AA noise to give me some noise to the color. Anti-alias noise, position in that, noise to the color. And then let's fit this. Bring that down there, and then want it to be less frequent, just a really subtle kind of thing in the background, you know, something like that is great. Then the material for this will literally just be Principled Shader at its default settings. Call it background. Maybe just set it to white so it picks up the colors that we made. Okay, go out here, background, render, find you there, and then render that. I think what I'll do is blur that a bit. So if we come back into the background SOP level and go find a attribute blur, And then by default, this is set up to blur the position. Yeah, we're going to blur the color, so CD. We should see that change. Blur it a load more. There we go. So you see it's really just kind of like almost like a fog in the background. Great. Okay, so I'm going to stop that and then render that out again. Just leave this, render it over. That's fine. It doesn't matter. So render to disk.